Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Ah, it's been a busy week, and there was a festival in our local harbor town of Schierstein here in Germany. But I managed to rush back in time and not even inebriated from the festival, which is a potential danger. Some of you have seen Tipsy Alex episodes, but no, I just wanted to make a little joke about being out and about this evening, but it is a nice summer evening. If it is nice where you are, I hope you enjoyed your day. Hey, how's it going, Kevin? And good afternoon from Wiesbaden, Germany. HRM, hey, how's it going? Greetings and long life. So, wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Tissot PRX Chrono, which I do believe is an incredible value because it is a value 7753 in here. Very nicely done. I have it on a Deluxe rubber strap. It's weird. They have replaceable straps for all of the three-handers, but everywhere I go, I can't seem to find a factory strap for the Chrono, but Deluxe makes one, and the Deluxe, it's very nice. It's spring-loaded deployant, so you just pull on it and it pops off, and it's just this beautiful deployant. And of course, the PRX is a nicely. I mean, for all of the complaints people have about the PRX Powermatic 80 being, a cheap movement with plastic parts, yada yada yada. The PRX Chrono is a legitimate, good Swiss-made chronograph, you know, and you can get it at retail for under 2,000. So it really is a good value because you can find the 7750 movement or variations of it in all kinds of pieces. I've mentioned many, many times on the channel. It's almost funny how many value 7750 base, like this is a value 7751, this Longines calendar, right? Um, this oh, and I have it on a NATO for the summer because it's hot. This Cartier Santos is a 7753. The Breitling Navitimer GMT. The newer ones have in-house or kind of in-house, but these older vintage pieces like this GMT 77, this was a 7751, if I'm not mistaken, whatever the value 7750 variant that has the GMT functionality. But there are a lot of watches out there that have the 7750 family in them, but then those are good pieces. But then that also is part of the topic is, remorses in buying and selling watches. You might buy a watch and realize, well, I was disappointed with the movement in it. Or you might sell a watch and go, oh, why did I sell it? I should never have sold that watch. And I have both of them in my collecting journey. And no doubt you all have those as well. Oscar, hey, how's it going, Oscar? Warren, hey, how's it going, Warren? Hi, Alex and gang. I attended my first watch show yesterday in Chicago. Very cool. Wind up watch fair with 60 manufacturers. It was great. I'm really glad you had an opportunity to do that. One of the nice things about the watch community, well, any good community is going to have events. They're going to have clubs. You should, if there's a watch club in your area, you should join the watch club because they get invited to things like openings of boutiques or releases of new pieces. Like I've applied for membership in the Frankfurt. There's a watch club it has a big one that has a branch in Frankfurt, and I'm not going to say the name unless they accept me. Then I'll give some free publicity. But joking. But that's how I wound up going to the Frederic Constant launch in my own town of Wiesbaden. There's a Patek and Frederic. The Patek AE also sells Frederic Constant, which is I find interesting. But that just shows you that Frederic Constant really has made an impact in the industry. A lot of people are now turning to them because I have an interview with their sales director for Germany from that event, and he points out they want to be known as a complications company, a movements company. So if you if you're buying a Frederic Constant, it's not necessarily because you want a Frederic Constant, but it's because you want an awesome world timer with an in-house movement that actually looks like it was made in-house and actually looks like the kind of movement that you want in a watch that you want to spend your money on and own. This is one of my favorite pieces in my collection. And speaking of part of the topic, regrets and buying and selling, I bought this and I was, trying to expand my collection in different directions, and I had a friend who was a banker, who he is a banker, but my friend is a banker, and he was interested in it, and I sold it to him, and I immediately regretted it. And he had a short-term need for cash, and he said, "Hey, Alex, are you interested in buying it back?" And being a banker, he also asked me to pay him a little bit towards the market value because it had gone up. And I'm like, you know what the hell? Because he was also a friend, and bankers are bankers. And I even paid a little. I mean, it was still less than retail, but I actually even paid a premium over what I had sold it to him for to get it back. And I'm glad I did because, as I said, I got it for less than retail. And I mean, even retail, we're talking about 5K here or so, but you are not going to find a better world timer for less than 10K, except for maybe the Aquaterra world timer, because that is a fantastic piece. But see, so in the case of that, the remorse of, I shouldn't have sold the piece, and having the opportunity to get it back into the collection. There are also times when buy a piece and you genuinely think to yourself, what did I do that for? Was I that caught up in the hype? Was I that hot for getting something? Was I that desirous of wanting to feel adventurous and buy something? And then you buy it, and then you're like, I wish I didn't buy this piece. And in my case, what I've what I've occasionally done is I will have a friend who actually, I shouldn't say actually, because I liked it when I bought it, and in a lot of cases of regret, it's not that I don't like the piece, it's that I wish I had spent my money on a different piece, or I wish I had saved on top of that money and bought a different piece. Sometimes to me, a watch is almost like a cul-de-sac. I'd say, "Oh, that watch is for me," and then I buy it, and then it turns out that wasn't necessarily the direction I realized I wanted to go, And then there's also the time when you realize, "Oh, yeah, that was the right thing to do, and I'm glad I was able to recover from that," you know? And then there's also the aspect of you've gotta be careful of that instant buyer's remorse, right? Because when you buy anything, when most of us buy something, once we've acquired it, there is that momentary, you know, letdown because the chase is often the most exciting part of collecting, not the actual ownership. The ownership is, of course, the aha, got it, because you could be a car enthusiast, for example, and know everything about a Ferrari Testarossa, um, and maybe you finally buy one. You may flip that car because you realize, oh, after all of that, I'm not really excited by the way it drives. But then again, unless you do buy it, then you're constantly chasing it, which sometimes is better. Sometimes it's better to be the auto enthusiast that drives a well-tuned Golf GTI and lusts after the Ferrari than actually having the Ferrari and realizing that, well, okay, actually, the Testarossa is a pretty awesome vehicle, but there are some there are some other Ferraris that are not. The 308's not really. I mean, it's a very exciting looking vehicle, but it wasn't that fantastic a driver, if I may say so myself. I'm not a professional driver, so I will leave that decision up to others. But I was never thrilled with it. Not that I owned one myself. You see, the best I've ever personally owned is used to be a car mechanic. I say used to be because nowadays everything is so developed. Unless you have the computer and the software and training, you're better off not touching a modern engine. But if it was made before 95, I can fix it. And I used to buy old 944s, which were very popular in the 80s and early 90s. And buy it and restore it and drive it until I couldn't fix it anymore and buy another one. So enthusiasm in anything is always worthwhile. The key is you have to recognize what you want, because, for example, I bought my first Porsche was a 924, which is a nice car, but it's not a Porsche. I mean, it's like driving a 914. It's a Porsche designed vehicle, Porsche chassis, but the 924 had an Audi four-cylinder engine, so it was a little bit lacking in the horsepower department. The 944, they took the 928 engine, which was a V8 5-liter, and literally sliced it in half to create a 2.5-liter four-cylinder, and then they put two balancing rods into the design to compensate for the missing four cylinders, and that's how they got the engine for the 944. So the 944 actually, for a four-cylinder, idles and runs very well because of the balancing rods to compensate for the missing four cylinders in that car. But again, it all depends on what you own, what you want, how you want to get there. So doing those things with those cars, I enjoyed. But in hindsight, sometimes I think maybe I should have bought cars I wouldn't have fiddled over and maybe spent more money on watches. But I think also it is a journey, and there are times when you have different interests. And as a younger man, I was more interested in driving aggressively and being. And I also had a car stereo installation shop and did a lot of. I mean, I've put literally thousands of watts into a single vehicle. But in every case, whether it's even an amplifier, you save up and you buy that Rockford Fosgate and you go, oh, well, maybe I wanted something else, and that's also part of the journey of collection, because as you collect and as you regret, you learn, right? Ooh, we're getting all kinds of comments. I need to scroll back up. I love it when we got lots of. I love a good comment section because that's what this exists for. HRM. I really regret selling my GB Enigma bezel manual winder. It was the world's first wristwatch that you could wind up and change the time with the bezel. Oh, very cool. See, and that's the thing. And in my case, sometimes I'll have sold the watch and regret having sold it, but then I bought something I like with that money. And then you really are in a kind of a pickle there. You can't really regret that sell as much because you bought something else with that money. Like, I kind of regret selling my Air King, but I bought my sub with that money. I mean, I added some, of course, but I used the guts of the money for my sub purchase came from the sale of my Air King. If I could have both, I would love that. But I don't regret selling the Air King enough to go out of my way to get another one. That's the other thing. I did regret selling my Oyster Quartz enough to go out of my way to get another one, because this is an awesome piece. And in my case, with this decision, I had I had an exactly same design, blue face, two-tone Oyster Quartz, and it was a lot to find another one just like it. But I also had a Zenith Rainbow two-tone blue face, and they're very similar pieces. And I was like, which of the two do I want? And at the time, I also had a Rolex Bluesy, which is also a blue face two-tone steel watch. And so I sold both the Zenith and the Oyster Quartz, and I do miss the Zenith. Um, and I missed the Oyster Quartz enough to get it again, because what happened was is that I wound up selling the Bluesy, and then I'm like, I don't have I did like I do like having a two-tone blue-faced steel piece. Just I like the color combination, and it's the only two-tone that I can tolerate, frankly. Um, and I thought to myself, "No, the Oyster Quartz," 'cause the Oyster Quartz also represents a lot of horological history, being Rolex's serious attempt at a quartz piece, which has more in common with a spring drive than it does with a, standard quartz watch. Oscar, I don't have any Swiss-made chrono auto, but not willing to pay more than 1,800. Well, then, bada bing, get yourself the PRX chrono, because you can get one of those new gray market from somebody reputable. I'm guessing probably around 15 to 16, maybe even less. But this is definitely totally worth it. I mean, as you know, I have more expensive pieces, but I like this watch. This is a nice watch and well worth having in your collection. And I was at a fest today, so I didn't want to maybe and I was at a harbor. I didn't want to accidentally, smack it against a rock, falling drunk into the river. Or I mean, that obviously didn't happen, but I always plan for the worst, and that way everything works out. But so I wore a watch that I enjoy wearing, but if something did happen to it, I wouldn't cry my eyes out like I would if I was wearing the silver Snoopy, say, and you know, doesn't even have to be anything aggressive. I could be trying to save somebody who fell backwards, grab them, fall down, and then smack my watch. So you have to think about that kind of stuff matter of fact, maybe that's an episode I should do, is, considerations for watch wearing for specific occasions, depending, like, for example, I went to see Springsteen and I wore my Nomos, and then I went to see Melissa Etheridge, and I didn't bother. I think I wore my silver Snoopy, because everybody in the audience is my age. There's not going to be a mosh pit of any kind of aggression going on in front of a Melissa Etheridge. Um, but she did sing "Come to My Window." I thought that was good, because that's one of my favorite songs of hers. But again, watch selection is directly involved in whether you regret buying a watch or not regret buying a watch, or regret selling a watch, because I like to think of a collection as almost a cast of characters. I've got a suit watch. Maybe I have a couple of suit watches, but I have a couple of suit watches that have different. Maybe one's a leading man suit watch, and maybe the other one's a supporting actor suit watch, and the casual watches, and you've got sports watches, and you maybe have field watches, and maybe if you're a handy person, you might have a G-Shock. I mean, I have a G-Shock just in case of the zombie apocalypse. I rarely wear it, but it's nice to know I have a G-Shock in my collection. But if you think of your watch collection as a cast of characters, right? The roles that they play, you may sell a watch and realize, damn it, I don't have a watch to play that role. And then you regret it just because of that. But then you can fill that hole by maybe buying another watch that would fill that role that you like better. Otherwise, you're going to have to be hunting on the marketplace to find a replacement for the piece that you regret selling. And if you look on the internet, you'll see there are tons of videos by watch pundits talking about the watches they sold that they regret. It's the selling regret, I think, is bigger than the buying regret, because the nice thing about watches, if you have regret buying it, you can at least sell it for most of the money, if not all of the money that you paid for it. Drinking a Campari orange today. For some reason, I felt summery. Eric Mack, hello. Oscar, even though the Chinese 1963 is not auto, I'm a good mechanic. Well, I'll tell you what, if my 1963 really gave up the ghost. It's inexpensive enough that after because I do want to take there are a couple of classes out at Glassota, 1 and 3 day. I would actually take the trouble, take the time, rent the hotel room, and do like a 3 day watch. Because it's just an introductory class. You're not going to learn how to really build a watch in 3 days. But um, after a 3 day introductory course, I would be willing to give it a shot to work on this thing because this thing's only worth about 300 or so bucks. And that's not a negative. It's cost effective. It's not cheap. It's an inexpensive piece. This design, for those who don't know, is based on a design made by the Venus watch company out of Switzerland, which no longer exists. And they sold this design to the Chinese to get the scratch together so they could design their own automatic movement because, of course, automatic chronos were coming into vogue. Speaking of weird and interesting chronos, no buyer's remorse with this because I only paid 160 bucks for it. But I'm gonna do a little piece on it. I thought it was cute. It's an homage to a Monaco, of course, and it's kind of also a homage to the skeleton Carrera 2, which has a date wheel layout like that. And what I also thought's interesting about this is that the 3 o'clock subdial is a 24-hour indicator, not a GMT 24-hour indicator. It's not independently settable. It just tells you, well, actually, the value 77 um, 51, I believe. The 9 o'clock subdial is just a 24-hour hand, but it's also doing some other stuff. The running seconds is in that same subdial. But I thought, why not have something funky to wear once in a while when I just want to wear something funky? Doesn't cost a lot of money. I'll probably swap out this strap, but you know, if you're buying it just for the heck of it, there really isn't going to be a lot of buyer's remorse because you don't. There's not a lot of emotional investment in it. But I do have some watches that I would sell if I had the opportunity, but if I don't sell them, it doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like my IWC. I like this IWC, but I don't wear it a lot. So I don't regret owning it and I wouldn't go out of my way to sell it. But if I had, say, for example, a friend who made me an offer on it and it was within the realm of what I would consider the watch is worth, I'd sell it. But for example, I would never sell my silver Snoopy at this point. Um, I might sell my sub if I was going to jump up and get a GMT Master because I wouldn't own. I think you only need one sports Rolex unless you have like comical money and you can do multiple things. Um, this was another piece that I almost sold, and I'm glad I didn't. The my Mont Blanc Nicholas Rusek. This is an awesome, beautiful piece, and if I had sold it, I would have regretted selling it in hindsight. But I was very lucky. As I was about to sell it, I realized, no, no, no. I really like this watch. I really look at this. I call it the layer cake. How beautiful is that? You know, and it's their first in-house movement, so they really went out of their way to make a good watch. It's a vertical clutch, column wheel, mono pusher, GMT chronograph, and a partridge in a pear tree. So that's where I come from on all of that. Let's look at some of these comments. What do we got going on here? Eric Mack, Oscar, I've had a 1963 from Sugas. I got to get new gradients because I realize I'm looking through the very bottoms of these things to read. I need to upgrade my lenses. Oscar, I've had a 63 from Sugas for a couple of years now. It doesn't wear too often. I don't wear it too often, but I haven't had any problems with it. Yeah, that's usually with the 63s is unless it's a lemon, they're going to run for a while because it's a good design. And the Chinese have practice. Yuck. I hate squishing bugs directly, but there was one on the screen, and why not take the opportunity. But yeah, with that, it's a great design. The Seagull, I mean the Seagull 1963, and the movement. And unless you get a lemon, it's going to run for a while because it is a good design, and the Chinese do know how to make things, and you don't need micron tolerances. It would help on, or I should say, submicron tolerances. Micron, you should have micron tolerances in a watch, but you don't need submicron tolerances in a movement. And as long as it's made well, it will run for quite a while. I've got friends who've had theirs for quite years, and no problems yet. I wouldn't take it in to have it serviced if I've owned it for several years and you need to have something done. I'd go out and buy a new one because the cost to repair is going to be. I mean, you can get someone to repair it. It's mechanical and parts are available, but the cost to fix it isn't worth the cost of the movement. HRM, the older Frederic Constant High Life Retrograde is another incredible underrated watch. I agree. It uses a top grade ETA 2892A2 with a 30-second retrograde module made by Agenhor. There you go. So in other words, it's a nice piece, has a nice complication module to give it the retrograde. And it's just nice because that's what Frederic Constant started out being, and that's what they're continuing to do, is they're taking complications that the average person could not even dream of affording and making them relatively affordable. I mean, if you think about, say, for example, a perpetual calendar. Yes, their perpetual calendar is just shy, shouting distance of $10,000. Actually, it's about 10,000 because it's almost 10,000 euro, and the euro is a little bit more than the dollar right now. So, but we're still talking within shouting distance of $10,000, and nothing else mechanical perpetual calendar is less than, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything under $30,000, $35,000. Perpetual calendar mechanical, moon phase. There are some perpetual calendars out there mechanical that don't cost 30,000, but I think Longines has one, but it just looks like a regular three-hander with a month and date display. It does the calculations, but there's no elegance to the presentation, as it were. There's no moon phase, for example, and um, pointers for month, day, year, and leap year, and all of those other nice things that you want to look at when you're looking at a perpetual calendar. So, yeah. That's a perfect example of a beautiful piece. Now, see, if you bought one of them and you sold it, right, you might regret selling it. But what happens if you then turned around and bought, say, a nicer piece, a piece that you wanted, and the money that you got from selling that watch that you regret selling helped you get this other watch that you like better? That's part of the bittersweet, the sacrifice, because unless you're a comically rich collector, we all have to buy and sell pieces to get the money together to buy the pieces that we want sometimes, or unless we have to wait and save, which is, you never buy a watch on credit. Never, ever, 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 ever. Number one, you don't want to be paying interest on something that is just a luxury. Number two is the time you're taking to save for it. It gives you the time to research it and research the category. Maybe there are other watches that would satisfy you, or maybe there are things about that watch. Maybe there's a certain model segment. If you're looking, say, for example, for a Sea Dweller, there are different iterations of the Sea Dweller. Some of them more people like than others. Like, some of the Sea Dwellers don't have a Cyclops, and so some Rolex wearers who like a Submariner style, because the Sea Dweller's a variation on the Submariner, but it's not a sub. So they want the date, but they don't want the Cyclops, but they don't want to cut the Cyclops off, because some people have actually done that. So there are variations on the Sea Dweller that have date, no Cyclops. So the more time you take to research a watch you buy, the less buyer's remorse you're going to get. Now, I will differentiate between buyer's remorse and just fear. at a bad purchase because, for example, and the purchase was a mistake, but the people I bought it from were great people because they acknowledged the situation and they helped me address it. When I bought my when I finally got the Moxie, because I had a like I said, I had a bluesy, but I had not really thought of it in my mind as like a sub because the bluesy is more of a dress piece in my mind than the tool watch that a sub is. And so when I decided to finally buy my sub, I saw a very nice, I forget the model number off the top of my head, aluminum bezel, and but it very, very good shape, and I bought it, and I took it home, and it had terrible amplitude, and it was off tremendously, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this watch already needs a service, and I haven't touched it." And so I took it back the very next day, and I saw this one in the window, and I said, "How much more do I have to give you to get this one?" And, they told me, and it was reasonable because they didn't have any kind of since I'm offering to buy a new piece, they took the one I brought back at the price I paid for it. They took it back at the price I paid for it, no stress. So, I was able to get this piece that I'm very happy with. Now, I probably would have been happy with the other one, but my remorse in that case was, this is a, safe queen. I know because there's a big discussion about how long a watch can sit on a shelf. A modern a watch made in the last 10 years or so, maybe even I'd even go far back as maybe 15. Um, I would trust sitting on a shelf for a long period of time because the oils are not going to degrade the way they used to. But a watch that's 20 years old, those oils are going to degrade, and you're going to have issues with that movement. And this one obviously had sat and not had anything done to it. And they probably would have serviced it for me, but it was easier to just s sell it back to them, buy a piece that I enjoyed. And frankly, I took this one home and I wasn't happy with the amplitude, but it still was under warranty. So I took it to the local AE and they gave it a small service for free. So I actually have the service certificate for a small service on this piece. So um, I know it's at the best it can be without a major overhaul, and it runs quite well on the Timegrapher within time and amplitude and all that other stuff. Um, but that's part of the buying adventure as well. What you're learning from you start to learn, okay, with older watches, you got to be careful about stuff like that, you know? So there's a difference between buyer's remorse and panic stricken because you bought the wrong thing. And then when it comes to seller's remorse, maybe if I had, say, for example, had just paid the money to service it, because the thing about having a sub is well, actually, I would have had it serviced by a local watchmaker who I trust that I know can handle Rolexes and can access parts. Um, because the older ones you can get parts. And it would have probably cost me, I don't know, 5 to 800 bucks. And the value of the watch has increased to the point where that would have been absorbed in the value of the watch anyway. So if I had not bought a different piece and say, for example, maybe sold it to just get rid of it, number one, I would have not felt good about myself selling a watch that needs service to someone else, even if they would have bought it enthusiastically because it's a Rolex. But I would have felt bad selling them a piece that may not show it now, but they're going to need to take it in soon. Um, so I would have sold it and then maybe regretted it because if I had just paid to have it serviced, I'd still have it and it would be worth more than the money I invested in it. So you have to really think about why you're regretting, a buy or a sell. Are the reasons because you're just being, whimsical? I don't, it may not be the case. Sometimes maybe it is. Maybe you buy it and you go, oh, I shouldn't have been drunk when I bought this watch, or maybe I shouldn't have been with this woman who I was attracted to and said, "Ooh, I like that piece," and that made me like that piece. Um, there are a lot of reasons to have remorse, and then there are a lot of if you think about those reasons while you're thinking about your buy, it'll help insulate you from some of the reasons for remorse because you either may not buy it or buy a different one, or when you buy it, be more secure in your feelings about it when you buy it. Because sometimes buyer's remorse is just insecurity because you like the piece, but maybe some watch collector you respect isn't thrilled with, it. Maybe they just don't like silicone hairsprings. I don't know. But don't mistake your remorse for your interpretations on other people's disapproval, because you should never wear a watch for someone else's approval or disapproval. You should only wear a piece because you like it on your wrist. You're the one who's wearing it. You're the one who's invested in it. You're the one who's got to live with it. They don't have to live with it. It's easy for them to armchair quarterback your life. Gian, hey Gian, I'm grateful I sold all three Longines. Yes, I know Gian. But like I said, I do respect your issue with them. Oscar, Eric, I've heard that they're good watches for what you pay for. Yes. For the money, they're fantastic. I mean, you're not going to get a column wheel hand wound, well, a column wheel chronograph of any caliber for under 500 bucks. No. So yeah, you considering what you're paying, you're getting a lot of value. I mean, you really are getting a lot of value in a oops. You really are getting a lot of value in a Seagull 63 movement. And I like this Panda version because there are a lot of very expensive Panda chronos on the market, and this is quite nice on its own. Um, well, Oscar, don't we've actually had this take up entire I shouldn't say entire episodes. We spent a lot of time talking about Longines and Jean's issues with Longines. Let's just say Jean had some unhappy experiences, but sometimes people do. HRM. I worked at a place that did Tesla swaps. Some bloke made us Tesla swap his Ferrari 308. Oh, I Tesla, like politics aside, Tesla makes some great vehicles. Um, Plus or minus. I don't want to talk about politics on this channel. This is a watch channel, and I'll talk about cars and whiskey, cigars too. Uh, but Teslas are some nice cars. But I would keep the Ferrari just for the collectability of it. Oh my God, that's a collectible vehicle. Even if you don't like the vehicle, that vehicle is in a category of collectability that you don't necessarily have to like it to appreciate its value. You know what I mean? Oh, in fact, I don't know, lease the 308 and use the money to buy the Tesla. If I owned a 30, well, I would, like I said, I don't have 308 money. Um, if that was all I could buy Ferrari, then yeah, I guess I probably would buy a 308. But I don't know if I'd swap a 308. Wow, that's a story. Gian. Oh no, no offense, Gian. I'll skip your Longines story to Oscar. Oh, scroll too far. Here we go. Um, Oscar and Gian, and they're discussing Longines. Uh, Modern Longines has been HRM. Modern Longines has been ruined by Swatch. Pre 95 is what you want. That I will address. I think Longines is doing as best a company can, owned by a group. They are um, expressing themselves as a watchmaker and not just regurgitating whatever. I mean, they've come out with some interesting new designs recently, and just the Spirit collection alone is a great series of pieces. And I actually do like the new um, the Diver GMT Aqua Racer, I believe. But like I said, I can respect other people's concerns about the piece. I really can. And but I think Longines is doing well for where it is in an organization. Because, for example, if you buy their today the new, if you buy their latest version of their master collection, it's a column wheel Value 7750 base movement, and they're the only people I know who get a column wheel in their 7750. Um, that's something, you know. The fact that that Swatch gives them at least that much room within a stable of companies, you know. And I recognize that's not an ideal situation. But Longines doing well for the situation it's in. I think now would be a good time for the Swatch Group to spin off some of their brands because the market has recovered to the point now where we can have that kind of competition again. And maybe it'll be healthier for the industry to have that kind of competition again. But there's no real pressure on any of these companies to sell. There are no new buyers because now it's easier to go out and create a micro brand and develop value within that. I mean, look at Formex, for example. They're quite reputable today. And they started as a micro brand, but they make their own stuff now. And I really do love their gold plated meteorite designs. There's some really nice pieces. Because when you think about it, yeah, of course. And a nickel alloy meteorite should be conductive, so you could plate it, and it looks gorgeous. I've got some videos on those from the last Dusseldorf watch show last October. You should take a look at those. But Gian, oh, wait a second, Oscar. Rockford Fosgate is actually a really good brand. No, it is. That's why I mentioned it. But you might want to go with, say, Krell or something really, obscure and powerful. But Rockford, you're right. Rockford Fosgate is some sweet stuff, especially back in the day in the 90s. When I had my shop, it was 95 to 97. Um, I stopped running the shop. I got hired away from my own business by Clifford Car Alarms. I wound up becoming the sales manager for Bavaria and Austria for them after that. Interesting time. But okay, so Gian, the question is my Tissot PRX Chrono a good watch? Yes, I have. Oh, wrong watch. I just had it in my hand. No, it's on my wrist. Sorry. I've had no real problems with it. A Certina Chrono with that kind of movement at a discount price. Well, because at that point, frankly, it's the brand, not the movement. This has got a Value 7753 in it, right? But it ain't Certina. It's not the movement, it's the brand at that point. That's why I was saying that this is a good value because Tissot is a recognized brand. It's arguably more recognized than Certina in the mainstream. And the PRX is a very, very popular family. And the 7753 is a fantastic. I mean, the 7753 really is a great piece. It's the same movement that's also in the Mito Ocean Star Chrono as well, and so a bunch of others. And the big reason the 7750 is used is because even though it's not a vertical clutch, it's not a horizontal clutch in the sense that two big gears come together. It has a pinion that comes in between the two gears. So even though it's not a horizontal clutch, you don't get that loss of amplitude that you normally get with a standard horizontal clutch, because that's the big difference between a vertical clutch and horizontal clutch. Vertical clutch, there's significantly less loss of amplitude. Horizontal clutch, there's a loss of amplitude as the gears, because of the inertia in the gearing. Whereas the 7750 family uses that pinion, so there's less moving weight moving around. There's less inertia involved in setting up the stopwatch, and so there's less amplitude loss. So and horizontal clutch is a little easier to design and deploy because in a horizontal clutch you can't even see it because it's under the center of the movement. But I mean, vertical clutch, you can't see it because it's directly under the center of the movement. Horizontal clutch, is often used by even high-end companies just because it's a better looking way to engage. The Seagull 63, that Venus Swiss movement, is a horizontal clutch. But the 7750 is a great movement. It's the brand at that point, it's the brand that determines the real value. But yeah, the Certina with a 7750 in it, buy it. If you like the way it looks. Because sometimes that's again where you get the remorse. You buy it because you go, "Oh wow, what a great deal." But yes, it's a great deal, but it's a great deal on a watch you weren't all that thrilled about. And that's how you get that remorse. So if you like that piece, then get it, and then you can say, "Hey, I got this cool watch at a great discount." Eric, I can't remember exactly, but it was less than 150 US. Yeah, you can get the Seagull really, really, really inexpensive in as Sugues, for example. Yeah, and they make good pieces, Sugues. You can even get tourbillons from Sugues. Uh, HRM to Gian. Longines before Swatch was a different beast. We all know this. I'm sorry, just we I know about the issues there. Just wanted to move on about from that. That's all. Oscar, economy worldwide is falling apart. That's when you see everything going down. Well, I mean, that is part of it to a degree because scared money don't buy luxury, right? Or scared money is more selective with the luxury they buy. And if you already have 2 or 3 Rolexes, maybe you buy a new Ferrari or a new yacht as opposed to a new Rolex because you already have one. It all depends on how much money you have. And if you're, say, for example, a stockbroker or a bond salesperson in Manhattan, you might be more concerned about making your rent than worrying about a luxury purchase right now. So it's and this is post bubble Rolex pricing. So right now, retail is the soft floor for Rolex. You can find some Rolexes for a little bit under retail. But most of the newer, this one's still selling for above retail gray market. Depends on the model, depends on the issue. But then again, and that's where remorse comes in again, right? So you say, "Oh, I was able to buy this Yachtmaster," and I mean the old school one with the timer for yachting. I mean, I was able to get this old Yachtmaster for a great price, and then you realize you didn't really want a Yachtmaster, but you bought it because you thought, "Oh, Rolex, high-end sports Rolex at a discount. Let me buy this thing." And then you're like, I should have just waited for the sub or the Sea Dweller or whatever you were, or the new Yachtmaster. Maybe you like the new Yachtmaster. But if you buy a watch based on impulse or market pressure or peer pressure, you're almost certainly going to regret that. And if you sell a watch based on market pressure, maybe you have a watch, like, for example, my Silver Snoopy. Let's say it did get as expensive as the previous generation because the white-faced Silver Snoopy, I mean, not white, the white-faced Snoopy Speedmaster with that says failure and does not failure is not an option on it is worth over 40K right now. So let's say that popped up to 40K, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of money. And on impulse, I sell it, and then I realize, why did I sell this piece? My kids could have inherited it, and they could sold it. No, hopefully my kids would have inherited it, and they would appreciate what their father left them. But don't allow impulse to force you to sell either, because that's where the regrets from selling come from. You know, you really have to think. That's why it's always best to take your time, do your research while you're saving up for the watch. Research the market, research the category, research the technology, research the complication, research the company, research their competitors. Take all that time, and that's all part of the collecting journey as well. And then it makes you a more informed collector, if only to argue more intelligently over a beer at a watch event or a glass of champagne, depending on the level of watch event. I've decided I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet and do crazy travel and go directly from the ECCE Electronics Conference in Birmingham, England, to Geneva Watch Days in Geneva, Switzerland. I figure I owe it to you that much because I haven't done hardly any new content. I am going to do I'm going to do a piece on the fakey Rolex. Can you tell it's fake? I guess the plastic spacer gives it away. And it's actually a very good looking piece. It's a high end. It's one of those high end fakes that if the only reason I was able to tell, the only reason I was able to tell that it was really fake, I had my doubts, but the only reason I could really tell it was fake was by opening it up. And I was expecting to have to really look at stuff like, oh, is it a free sprung balance? I wasn't expecting to see white plastic spacer. Now, that would be buyer's remorse. But my friend who brought it to me to let it to ask, a friend of mine brought it to me because he wanted me to check it to see if it was real. He got it as a gift from a friend who got it as a tip in a business deal. So nobody lost any money, but I guess the guy who it was an individual that possibly may just have a box full of fake Rolexes and just gives them out, making to make people think he's got serious money. But as I say, fakes are a lie, and the first person you're lying to is yourself if you wear one. But that's another area of remorse. Or let's say, for example, well, actually, see, you can't buy an homage and have buyer's regret because the reason you're buying the homage is to see if you like that style of watch, mostly. Because it's an homage of a sub or a Portugueser, right? And there are two reasons to buy an homage. One, you like the design and you want to wear it as a daily wear. And then odds are you're not going to be really disappointed because you're not buying it for the brand, you're buying it for the design. The other one would be you're buying it because you want to decide if you like that kind of a chrono layout that's in the Portugueser, for example, or the Yachtmaster or whatever. And you buy the homage to have a feel for how that watch wears. At that point, you can't really have remorse about the homage because it's fulfilling what you bought it for to let you know that you don't like that design. You know what I mean? But then it all depends on how maybe you wish that you had bought a better homage to do a better analyses, or maybe not a better homage to do a better check, but a better homage because you wanted to wear it as a daily wear. But again, that's also part of the journey of collecting. You're gonna wind up buying pieces that you're sorry that you bought, and you're gonna sell pieces that you regret that you sold. The key is to learn from those experiences and use them to improve your collecting journey. That's the Seagull 1963 with the ST, yes. With the swan neck, yes, this one has the swan neck regulator. Is there an automatic chrono made in Japan? Oh yeah, Oscar. There are tons of automatic chronos. Seiko's got a whole plethora of automatic chronos. Grand Seiko's got a couple. Citizen's got a bunch of mechanical automatic chronos. Um, you can get some automatic chronos out of the Japanese market. And they make some good ones. They just sell a lot of quartz ones, but they do have mechanical chronos available from major Japanese suppliers like Seiko and Citizen. And I don't know if Casio's got a mechanical chrono, but I think they should put it that way. Gian, laughing my ass off. It's these internet stories about someone too drunk and bought a dog online and went sober and realized he bought a baby cow instead. Well, like I said, I've bought some stupid stuff in my life, inebriated, but I think we all have. I was once drunk watching Walking Dead years ago, and I bought a crossbow and that Gerber knife set that he had in the like a unrolled this like pack, and there's like 20 blades in this thing. And I bought them. And the next day I woke up and I'm like, holy crap, what did I buy? And I was able to cancel the order on the Gerber knife kit. And in hindsight, I should have gotten it because it was incredibly collectible. I should have kept that one, but I didn't. And the crossbow came in, and I gave the crossbow to my sister who has a small farm in upstate New York. So she was able to put it to some reasonable use, if only for, fun shooting. But you can have regrets about buying anything. The key with watch collecting and with any collecting journey is you want to take those lessons and apply them to future purchases, decisions, activities. Parth, Rolex is insanely overpriced trash. It's overpriced. I wouldn't say it's insanely overpriced because, for example, a no-date sub sells for 9 and change retail. Now, people say, well, you can't get it retail. Well, that's a different issue. But Rolex doesn't get that money from the gray market markup. They get the money that you pay at retail, right? So Rolex sells that no-date sub for 9 and change at retail. I would say that watch is worth 5 to 6 because it is made in their factory. They're completely vertically integrated. They make their own steel. They make their own gold. They set their own, they have their own jewelers. Rolexes are not elegant pieces. They're bulletproof, foolproof pieces. The movement in this can be serviced by any decent watchmaker. It will run under incredibly rough circumstances, very accurately, very reliably over a very long period of time. And it's a luxury brand with high, if not the highest brand recognition. And you can get one of their signature pieces for under 10,000 at retail. Now, like I said, aftermarket is a different issue. You can't blame Rolex for the gray market prices on watches. That's the marketplace showing everyone that they're worth more than they're selling for at retail because people are willing to pay more than retail to get them. The market has spoken there. So when you say that they're ridiculously overpriced watches, not by market standards, because it's not that Rolex is asking for this money and nobody's giving them this money. They're asking for this money. And like I said, at retail, it's actually reasonable. 9K for a sub, ceramic sub, in my mind, is overpriced. But in my mind, it's only about 30% overpriced. That watch is worth what its comparative Tudor piece would be, which is 5K and change for a Tudor Black Bay, 58 or whatever. But I don't think it's ridiculously overpriced. And my whole live stream last week was about our Swiss watches or luxury watches, premium watches overpriced. And people are often looking at, gray market prices or expectations. Now, there are some watches that are comically overpriced and admittedly so, like Richard Mille, but they're in a completely different realm. We're talking about $1 million watches there. And like I said, the Rolex you can get for less than 10K at retail. You can get that watch for less than 15K gray today in the current market. So it's overpriced, but it's not prohibitively overpriced, And if it is prohibitively overpriced for you, there are a lot of great I mean, I only bought mine a couple of years ago. Not even. I bought mine last year. I'm 63 years old. I didn't have any Rolexes in my 40s or 50s, I'm not whining about not being able to get them at that time in my life. I wore other watches that I could afford. There are a lot of great watches. You don't think if you think Rolex is overpriced, buy something else. There are a lot of great watches out there. That's enough of that. I'm sorry to rant a little bit, but like I said, I had a whole episode on this exact topic last week. And we're at the top of the hour, so we'll scroll through the last of these questions. We'll bury the Longines hatchet now. Thank you. Hey, Miranda, glad to see you. Parth, Hamilton or Gucci? I think Gucci's a fashion brand. I mean, they make nice pieces, but there's no horology in them. They're nice watches, though. I mean, I'd wear one if I got one as a gift. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy one if I saw one at a really great price and it had because they do nice presentation. If I saw one with some kind of motif on it that I really liked, I might buy one. Hamilton is a real watch company. They make good pieces. They were originally an American company. They wound up being bought by the Swiss. And Hamilton has some legacy pieces. Their field watches, the khaki field, are legendary, legendary field watches. And they've even, done things recently, like the Murph is a very hot model. Seen it being worn by people on TV. It's a clean, simple, good-looking, relatively inexpensive piece. You don't have to, not even Rolex money, like good money, inexpensive money, less than this money. Jonata, hey, how's it going? Favorite watch, day date 40 in 18 Everose with olive green dial, fluted bezel, and president bracelet. That is a nice looking piece. I can picture it in my mind, that gold president, because my departed father-in-law, rest in peace, he used to have a black dial day date president, gold. Beautiful piece, really elegant. I think Pickens, or who runs Hathaway, Berkshire Hathaway. He owns one. Gian, I can explain about. Yeah, I did. Miranda, if you want everything Swiss made, including the metal parts, it has its price and people appreciate it. What I was saying earlier. Parth, Omega is better than Rolex. That I'll give you. But I've said that saying many, many times, and I wasn't the one to make it up. Omega is the better watch. Rolex is the better brand. I think I think my Silver Snoopy is a better watch than my sub, and it's worth more on the gray market. So the market knows. The market knows, and Seamasters are less than subs on the gray market, but they started for less at retail, and they hold their value very well. You can't get a new Seamaster gray market for less than 5, and they retail for 6 and change, so they don't fall very far. Parth, you can get a Swiss-made watch for several $100s. You're absolutely right, Parth, and there's some very good companies out there like Oris and Mito that makes them, and Tissot. Definitely great watches, and I own a Tissot too. I'm not one of those collectors that it's got to always be Rolex. I own 2 Rolexes. One of them's the Oyster Quartz. Maybe you came in late. This one is only worth about 6, 7. It's worth more than the comparable date just from that period. But then again, the Oyster Quartz is more collectible. It's a more horologically significant piece. So Sheehan, will point, there was times I almost got tempted to get a watch like an Oris because of the discounts, and then realized the Aquas have a Solida in it. Yeah, don't go too far with that, because that Solida is a nice piece. Maybe it won't have that. Check it out in the shop. Maybe it won't have that jump in minute thing you were upset about with the Longines. Oscar, yes, but it depends on the brand. We went over, date complication shouldn't cost $10K. You're not paying $10K for a date complication. You're paying $10K for a Rolex. You're not, with the Rolex, you're not paying for the complication. You're paying for the brand. Rolex is not using super materials to Omega. No. And they have no hand finishing. This is true, but then neither does Omega in their mainstream pieces. They have hand assembly and QC and all that other. And like I said, I love my Snoopy. But and Omega is like I said, I agree with you. Omega is the better watch, but it's not the better brand. Rolex is the better brand. They've managed to navigate the rough waters of the marketplace more successfully. Let's put it that way. And frankly, the Land Dweller is a movement, an escapement on par, if not better than the Omega. That I will give them. The Land Dweller, that new escapement of theirs, is something horologically significant. Miranda, that's not what I'm talking about. Of course, I know that I'm Swiss. Swiss made has different levels. This is also true, and that's something what I went into when I was talking in the other episodes. Because yeah, there is a difference between you know Swiss made and Swiss made. This is a great piece, but this has got an edit base in it. This is a great piece and has an in-house movement in it. There are different levels. It all depends on how far down the rabbit hole or up the mountain, depending on your metaphor you'd like to go. So we are. Let's just get the rest of these out of the way, comment-wise. LOL. I still have that fake. No, this is a. Oh, the Gian. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about last week. I just haven't gotten around to making the episode, and I asked him to let me hold on to it until I did the episode because I'm doing a complete, close examination. I'll even bring out the USB microscope for that one. But I'm going to do an episode on it, and then I got to give it back to him because I offered to buy it so I can smash it on the episode the way I do with my other fakes. But he wants me to give it back to him. He'll probably wear it, but that's all right. Hopefully he'll wear it ironically. Look at the fake Rolex I have, because in my mind that's the only good way to wear a fake Rolex is just say, "Hey, isn't that cool? Ha ha!" Make fun of the whole aspect of it. Use it sarcastically, I guess you would say. Okay, like I said, last ones. Oscar, Etta or Salida? I think Etta's better. Solida's a good company, but they got started by doing off-patent Ettas, and they haven't done anything really that significantly new. Like, if they came out with a new GMT movement, I would say, wow, look at what Solida's doing. Miyota came out with a new GMT movement. That is a travel GMT. So Etta, in my mind, is better. Solida's a good house. There's nothing wrong with Solida movements. I no longer have it. My Mont Blanc Geosphere was a Solida base with a World Time module put on top, in-house. It wasn't like a Duprat movement or anything like that. So let's see. Tudor just came out with a new line, the Black Bay 68. Ooh, I got to look for that. Evil Mad 666. Good evening. Unfortunately, I am bailing. We're at the top of the hour. I've been already rolling for an hour, but I'm going to finish these questions and then we will call it an evening. Arthur, if I didn't say hi already, hi. What are my thoughts on the Parmigiani Fleurier Tanda? That's a very nice watch. That is a nice watch. Very well made. If I came across one that I liked the design, I would jump all over it because they really are well-made pieces. But yeah, they are good. If you like something of theirs, get it. Yanada, one watch I'd like to have is the Nautilus. I actually like the Aquanaut better, but I would want the Aquanaut on a leather or a metal strap. I don't like the rubber on something that high-end. The waiting list is long. You're absolutely right on the Nautilus. No kidding. Gian, I was going to type that Rolex is the better brand. Exactly. No, yeah, Omega's the better watch. Steel Steves, hey. Rolex is doing is indifferent than any other watch. Most is using white gold in their hour markers. That's a good point. There's platinum lining the bezel indicators in here. Platinum. They don't fiddle around. Who has the best steel bracelet? Yeah, Rolex has a great steel bracelet. I'll give them that. But I do like the new steel bracelet on the Speedmaster. I do. I got one for the Silver Snoopy, and I do like it. Feels very comfortable. Okay, but we're all on that note about everybody talking about Rolex and quality and all, which they are. Let's go ahead and end it while we still have something to talk about next week. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I love you all. Have a fantastic week. And more importantly, have a great evening.